Hello friends, and welcome to a Position 5 tier list. We're going to talk about the best hard supports in the game right now, in my opinion, of course, and this is going to lean more into the professional scene. I've been doing a good amount of casting lately, more so than watching your games or playing my own games, so my insights into the pubs a little less than usual. So this will reflect the professional scene, and if you see a hero that has a good win rate in pubs, and you're like, I win with this, that's why you may not see them so up there, because pro scene different from pub scene. I'll try to make a difference as we go through this. Let's get into it. I'm going to knock Chen out of the way real quick, just because even if I tell you he's the best hard support in the game, which he is, you're not going to play him if you're not interested in it. He's just, he's a hero you have to play to really make use of. And if you can, you're going to find that you have a very strong laning stage into early momentum with the auras. Then you might say, oh, well, do you drop off when your creeps are easily killed? Kind of, but you can also use them to just rat things like troll creeps, hide them in the jungle, pop them out of a bottom lane or something when everything's going on top, have them just shove in the lane and just take buildings, because he's super fast. He opens up Roshan really early, so great hero right now, pretty much 100% picked or banned by pros as long as they have a Chen player. So even though he's really good, yeah, even the pros aren't just going to force it out of nothing. If you guys want to learn Chen, he will work in your pubs just a little bit different than what you'll see at the professional level, but it could still be a good time to learn Chen if you've ever been interested in it. Next up is Crystal Maiden. In the past, she would go QW by level 2 for the most spell damage and aggressive potential, which you can still do if you think you need it, but a lot of the pros right now are going QE or WE. So Q first if you have to secure the range creeps and you just want to generally harass. W first if you want to really specifically work on one hero and potentially kill him. The E at level 2 is to sustain that spell spam, because it is now, instead of a 6 times self multiplier, it is 7 times self multiplier, so it helps you get the spells out without having to use a bunch of mangoes that maybe other people on your team need. And then at level 3, you do go 1-1-1, max W after that, because it is your best spell in terms of being active, and that's what the pros like, and I think would work really well in your pubs, because I highly recommend you buy the Shard pretty quickly, faster than the pros will buy it, because Crystal Clone is really good. You can essentially walk into a creep wave, use Crystal Clone, stack a camp, stand next to it, Crystal Clone. You will just hit Frostbite on all the creeps and farm all of them. You might have to throw in a few more auto attack spells, stuff like that, but it just massively speeds up your farm and helps you push out waves, which that is often lacking in pub games. So really good, and then really good for these mobile heroes like Puck, Primal Beast. They try to charge in, they get hit by the Crystal Clone, hit them with the second Frostbite, hit your ult. Just very good that way. So she's really powerful, especially against some of these offlaners that are very scary if they get off to a good start. Many of the pros are responding with a Crystal Maiden pick to do a lot of damage to them and try to kill them off in those early levels when they're still weak, such as a Timbersaw, get him killed so that he can't hit that insane snowball potential. I'm also going to throw Mirana into the S tier. I think she is pretty applicable to your pubs as well. QEQ is kind of the way to go for hard support Mirana. W at level 4, that also lines up with when you're more likely to roam a little bit more. So the QEQ gives you the most laning presence compared to the arrow, which position 4 Mirana can use a bit better. It's really the same Mirana that you've seen in the past. There's nothing really that crazy about it. You do that skill build, you contribute the arrow, you contribute the invis. Right now, there's a lot of setup stuns in the game, like Dragonite, Shadow Demon in the position 4, stuff like that. So she has multiple lanes to gank if you pick her in the position 5, as well as use your ult to roam, invis, find kills. That maybe is less there in the pub games, but you just throw out arrows. Eventually you hit something, you stun them for 4 seconds, and you're like, woo, kill that guy, we win the game, right? So I think she's still really good if you want to play her. That's sort of my S tier. There's kind of other heroes I kind of want to move in there, and some up and down. It's not the hard part of tier list. Let's just leave that as it is for now. Let's move into the A tier, which often when these heroes are already picked or banned, these are then the next follow-ups. So techies, just strong laning stage, long range attack, universal hero. Q, better than ever to poke, and then eventually level 2, blast off into the Q, into blood grenades, stuff like that. Lots of kill potential, very powerful with the strong heroes or against the strong heroes that are very prevalent right now. So just very solid blind pick, fits a lot of matchups. The ultimate gives a lot of kill potential with the magic resistance reduction, but it's also just good utility. You place it around the map. If they smoke, they pop a mine. You still know, even though you can't see them, like, that mine just exploded. I wonder why, right? They're smoked. So just a lot of value to his team. Build whatever you need. Lion did get nerfed. Shard, you don't have to build it every single game anymore. You can still build it if it makes sense, but you might go for another item or two before going back for the Shard or hoping the Tormentor gives it to you. But in the end, he still does what he does. He's got 2 forms of crowd control. The mana drain is still very annoying in the laning stage, and you can use it on your allies to give them mana. And then, of course, the old kill securing, right? Ultimate, very good for these like early pickoffs to like get your team going, and it does scale or like lower in cooldown to become easier to use throughout the game. So just offers a lot in all the games, and the nerfs just didn't hit him hard enough to take him out of the meta. Undying has been rising in popularity, especially in South America and Eastern Europe. He is really good as a response to the strength melee offlaners, which there are many that are really good right now. So if any of them slip through the pool and a team picks it first, you might see an Undying as a response pick just to ruin that hero's time, and then of course secure your own safe lane. It's really like the same as it used to be, this Undying pick, but it dropped off for a little bit because other heroes were just too good. But now that they've been nerfed, such as Lion, Venge, Nature's Prophet, Undying is starting to come back a little bit, but not every team does it. It's a little bit stylized. The issue in pub games, like Techies and Lion, you can just first pick, you're gonna get tons of value. The issue with Undying is you first pick him, and then the enemy offlaner sees it, and they're like, I don't think I'm gonna pick a strength melee offlaner anymore. So they pick something else, which right now there's not a lot of other ranged offlaners, but the meta has never mattered in pubs. So they'll go like offlane Weaver, and you're like, that's not meta, but it is kind of good versus me as an Undying. And then they like carry because, pubs are weird. So that's kind of the issue with Undying. For pub games, I would move him like down a tier, but if you ever do see the enemy pick a strength offlaner and you get to second phase pick for whatever reason, then Undying can be a great pick. Next up, we got Shadow Demon, who I think is a better position 4. Actually, the same applies for Batrider. I think they're both better position 4s, but they're good enough in position 5, and they pretty much do the exact same thing that in the end, it's like really good no matter what position you play. So the nice thing about Shadow Demon is that Disruption is really good as a setup for example, an off-lane Centaur to come up and then stomp and double edge. There's a whole combo there. Safe lane, kind of the same deal with some of the stronger safe laners, or you just use it to disrupt the enemy's powerful combos. Like you see Blast Off coming in, all that. You just disrupt, save your guy, or disrupt the enemy, mess up their stuff, and you just save your teammates that way. Throughout the laning stage, or just throughout the game, it really, illusions from your disruption, and then Shadow Poison, fantastic stacking tool. And we've got a lot of popular carries like Sven and Luna, Primal Beast, Timber, like these flash farming mid heroes and offlane heroes. A lot of people just want to do stacks right now, and he's one of the best stacking heroes in the game. So you get through the laning stage. It's not like the strongest lane. Shadow Poison can be good, catch people off guard in your pubs, but compared to like some of these other heroes, it's not as straightforward. But once you get through there, all that stacking, and then your ultimate screws over a hero like Sven. He's a hero who wants to get a lot done in his BKB God Strength timing. There's a couple carries like that right now, like Lifestealer as well. And you just, you use your ultimate on them, pierces BKB, and they're just super slow, super kiteable. Even if they do get to a target, you can disrupt either the target, your allies, or if they don't have BKB, you can disrupt them, and you just kite them the whole time. If it's not those heroes, there's a lot of illusion heroes that are popular, like Luna, Terrablade, Morphling, right? You just copy them, get your own illusion. So just very strong. Pubs, it's a little harder to run, like I said, just because there's more dependence on your team to like work with disruption. It's like less straightforward than like, I threw a stun, now you throw a stun, right? So I still think you can play him if you like him, but you'll find some like a little bit of trickiness to it. Now, Batrider is the same as Batrider of old. There's some been buffs and nerfs, but essentially it's the same. Flame Break, knock people out of position. Firefly, run people down. Once you have like 2 points in Firefly, you can just like steal their camps, especially their pull camps, so they can't even use them. Fantastic. The issue with the like playing Batrider in pubs versus the pro scene is that after the laning stage and after you play aggressive, you like pick up a lead, you will see a lot of Batriders go very greedy. They will be farming the enemy jungle, they'll be doing stacks and farming those stacks, and it's understood that that's good because they're going to hit a very fast blink lasso timing with which they will then contribute back to the team. But in your pub games, it can be tough to do that because, like, you play the lane properly, you build up a lead, you're like, okay, now I go jungle, you, like, start to walk away, and then the guy dies, 1v2, and then the whole thing's ruined, and you're trying to farm, like, get your item, like, oh, Zach told me I gotta, like, get that blink dagger, and he's like, why are you farming? I'm feeding in the lane. You're like, could you not feed in the lane? But he still feeds in the lane, so that's a little bit of the tough part of Batrider. If you can't play that, like, slightly greedier style, you lose a bit of the value here, and it's like it's easier to run another support at that time. So it's up to you guys. I do think he's really cool. He's a really fun hero to play. It's just tricky. He himself is a little tricky to, like, push that limits of greediness, and then it's hard to have teammates who, like, understand that and play properly with it. But if you do, he's fantastic. Batrider Lasso is also a great way to screw over, like, Sven in BKB. I keep using Sven because he's really good right now. But, like, any BKB carry, right, there's a punch of money in them, and then you're just some, like, position 5 Batrider, and you're like, blink Lasso, you're disabled for your entire BKB. I mean, not the entire BKB, but a big chunk of it, and then I, like, drag you out of position, stuff like that, right? So Shadow Demon and Batrider, I feel like, are two of the best heroes. It's just, like, these BKB heroes are just so sad when there's, like, a position 5 that you have to be worried about because you're like, otherwise I'm gonna get kited too hard, so now I gotta worry about that support, right? Like, who else can really offer that? Terrablade, very new tech. I think he's better in the position 4, but maybe I'm just new to it as well, like everyone else. And I have seen very strong position 5 performances as well. Just a very strong lane. The issue in pubs is the whole tilt potential of teammates who think you're griefing. But his laning stage is really strong. At level 2, Reflection plus Metamorphosis is one of the strongest kill potentials, along with Blood Grenade, from just, like, a hero on his own. And all you need are, like, stuns and slows to, like, really wrap it up, which, of course, you're getting, like, a Medusa carry, right? So that's not that great. Sunder, cool saving tool. The illusion spam, you can use it for all sorts of things. Visions, push out lanes, stuff like that. If you want more info, guides on it, I have a separate guide that you can watch. But I understand if you're too scared to play it as a position 5 because it's very different. But it's really good. Like, supports have never really played Terrablade, and he has a very good win rate, which really shows, like, how strong he is. Not every pro team is willing to run him, but the pros that are, you will see it picked up pretty early as a flex pick. So, for example, you let Dragonite through and Shadow Demon's been banned, you'll see Terrablade picked up to have that reflection response, and then you kind of see, like, do I want to run carry Terrablade? Do I want to run support Terrablade? Like, 1, 4, or 5, like, that's a lot of flex value from a hero for the pro team, so they like him a lot. He can maybe move down a tier, but I think it's kind of cool. If you want to play him, this might be the only patch to do it, so if you're brave enough, if you're feeling up for it, give it a go. Down in the B tier, many of these heroes are still good, but they are just a little bit more niche. Like, you have to have a specific strategy in mind with them, or you pick them as a response to other things you see, compared to, like, these SNA tier heroes, which are often, like, just straight up picked right at the start. You're one of your first hero picks that you then build the rest of the draft around. So Vengeful Spirit used to be up here, but she got hit with several nerfs. The most recent ones, the most painful one, was that her Wave of Terror went from, like, 85 damage down to 60 damage. It was like a 25 damage nerf, and that makes it really difficult to use to secure range creeps, because at that point, like, 60 damage is pretty much an auto attack. So she lost a lot of power to play those early lanes and get all those creeps, which in the pub games is not such a big deal, and as you get through those early levels, she ends up being pretty much the same hero, just, like, slightly nerfed. So she's still fantastic in pub games, but in the pro scene, she dropped off because of that, because every single CS is so big, is like there's a bunch of sweaty tryhards at the pro scene, right? So all that little stuff really adds up when you can't secure as many range creeps or just creeps in general, like, oh, you lost a little bit of damage, stuff like that. So that's why you don't see it as much at the pro level, but ultimately what she offers is the same: the swap potential, the Wave of Terror scouting plus negative armor and attack damage reduction, her own aura to boost up allies. It's all still really good, just maybe a little less good compared to these. But you'll still see her prioritized when a team wants to run, like, negative armor strat. She's still the best support for that kind of stuff. So if you're thinking about playing her in pubs, I would move her up a tier, because I don't think the nerfs to her, like, for the majority of pub players who aren't, like, in Immortal and higher, that level of CS stuff, like, is not the end of the world. I've seen your laning stages, trust me. So I think everything else she offers is still good enough that you can play her. Grimstroke was really popular with the Shivas meta, and there was just a ton of heroes rushing Shivas, and he loved that. He just ink swell them, go ahead, run in, just like amplify all my damage. That has dropped off, but it still exists to some degree. Like some heroes still do it. So that's also why Grimstroke has dropped off a little bit, because as long as you have an offlaner or someone who's going to build Shivas and just run in like that, then Grimstroke still has a great time. But if you don't have anyone like that, then he's like, having less good of a time having to run in Inkswell myself. Don't really love doing that. Soulbind, still good, depends on the draft, and it is pretty good versus a hero like Lifestealer or Sven, like people that don't like to be kited. But just compared to like some other heroes, his individual laning stage is not as good. You need the pairings with the other heroes, and so because that has dropped, so has Grimstroke. But still good. Sometimes you'll still see those pairings, and then you'll see him picked up because he is strong in those cases. Oh, one more thing, the rise in heroes like Lifestealer and Shadow Demon also hurt him a lot, because you try to like Inkswell and then he just like disrupt either you or the target, or like he ultimates like the guy you're trying to like run in with the Inkswell. Inkswell gets dispelled or purged, whatever. It just sucks. Or like Lifestealer just rages and is like, I literally don't care about your Inkswell. And you're like, oh, okay. So that's kind of why he's dropped a little bit. But often as the draft bans out certain heroes and they look at it, they go like, oh yeah, it's fine. That's when you'll see pros pick up the Grimstroke. Gyrocopter's pretty nice because of the flex value for the pro scene. If you're first phasing it in pubs, people kind of know it's a support Gyrocopter, but it's really strong. Just a very powerful laning stage, using sometimes 1 point in flat cannon for just harass across the entire laning stage, but often just like maxing rocket barrage and then your homing missile, very powerful. The ultimate does tons of damage now. The fact that you can like choose the direction, really useful. You don't have to rush Shard. That used to be the old build. You can just buy like generic items, whatever you need, and eventually go back for the Shard if you want. The pros like it because you can flex it, and it's good as a response to like an Enigma first phase. You can pick support Gyro or carry Gyro and farm the Eidolons with flat cannon depending where Enigma goes. So at the pro level, you'll see it. I think it's really good in pubs because it's just he's usually a carry, right? So there's always that scaling potential. Always. I'm a big fan of that for pub games. Pugna has been declining. He is still really good when you have the right pairing, like a Storm Spirit in the mid lane, and you can give him health and mana to keep him going. That's still really strong, but he has dropped off because heroes like Shadow Demon are popular and because Revenant's Brooch is so good right now. And in the mid to late game, you're like, oh, I'm Decrepify saving people, right? Before you just had to worry about Nullifier. Now there's Nullifier and Revenant's Brooch, so there's more counters to the Pugna, and it feels a little bit worse to pick him. But as long as the draft works, you'll still see him, especially for tempo lineups, to like use his Nether Blast on towers, stuff like that. In your pub games, it can be difficult to have the right hero pairings to make use of your ultimate to push that tempo. And so, like, I'm not such a huge fan of him in pub games below a certain level. But if you really like him, I still think he's pretty playable. Phoenix has been returning a little bit, even though Blade Mail Heart meta got nerfed. I don't know if it's by chance or what, but currently there's a lot of popular heroes who are very tanky. A lot of strength heroes in the meta, and Phoenix we're back to the percent HP being really good because of that. So that's kind of the whole Phoenix thing. Mars is also really good, and so Phoenix Mars is a classic combo egg on the arena to just protect it, all that stuff. So teams like Phoenix, as long as it makes sense in the draft, in your pub games, you may have less synergy with the whole egg protection and the sunray stuff, but fire spirits are even stronger in pubs because no one, like Phoenix isn't that popular. So then they're like, oh, I can hit Phoenix, right? And they're like, no, you can't hit Phoenix. Your attack is really slow, but a lot of people don't remember that. So usually you can win your laning stage through that and then go from there. Enchantress is still pretty good. She's like a ranged version of Undying when you want to secure the lane. But Mage Slayer got nerfed, and that was pretty much her best build. Like, go through the laning stage, treads, Mage Slayer, then like Shard, whatever else. Nowadays, you'll see a lot more Dragon Lances. Mage Slayer can be good depending on the game still, but it really did drop off. So I think she fell a little bit, but ultimately, if you want a really strong support to secure your safe lane and then have a pretty tempo-based game, Enchantress is good. And in pubs, you have a lot more scaling potential. So I've been playing more Enchantress lately. Huge fan of it. If you guys want to learn it, good time for it. Nature's nerfs did hurt, and I definitely feel it. But if you didn't use the teleport cooldown to its maximum potential, aka like off cooldown, then it's kind of okay. But at the highest level, like pros wanted to TP all the time, and so the extra time on it, like 15 seconds at level 1, really hurts until you have it maxed out and it gets back down to 30 seconds. The base damage from your attacks and the sprout damage, all of it hurts. I have felt it where like someone gets away with 20 health or someone is low on the other side and you're like, oh, I wish I could be there. I'm still waiting for the cooldowns. It hurt. He dropped out of the meta. But when you want global pressure at the early game, no one else can do what Nature's Prophet can. So even in the pro scene, you will see teams still pick it. In your pub games, I think you can still play it, but you really got to know what you're doing. If you look at the win rates right now, you're like, Zach, his win rate's awful. It's because he's a tricky hero to play without griefing. So you got to know what you're doing to run him properly. It's not like before where he was just so busted, anyone could pick him. That's kind of where Terrablade's at. Nature's is much more... Actually, Nature's was even more broken than Terrablade at the time, okay? But Nature's is more of a nuanced hero now who like offers really powerful stuff if you know what you're doing. Io, I know none of you are going to play Io, so like whatever. A lot of the pros won't play it either. He is good with certain heroes, bad with others. That's how it's always gone, right? So right now you are not seeing a lot of like, oh, Io's in the draft, we got to first pick it, right? After a couple heroes come out, the teams look at it and go, pretty good Io game, I will play it. But only some teams are really interested in Io right now. So he is good. When you see him in the game, you're like, wow, I can't believe we don't see him more. But it's because he wants like a certain set of like heroes and stuff to like really shine. Pubs are just always lacking coordination, and it's like really frustrating to play Io. I'm super jaded on it if you can't tell. But if you want to try him out, especially for like party games, go ahead, give it a go. But if you're not, and you're not willing to like use your mic a ton in your solo games, like I just wouldn't touch Io. Enigma is a pretty cool pick that some teams love and other teams ignore. You will see him as an offlaner or a hard support, sometimes a force support, but less so. You don't deny creeps like you used to. You just create the Eidolons, and then that extra attack damage allows you to deny a lot of your own creeps, harass them when they walk in, when they split, super powerful. When you get level 2, 6 Eidolons, you throw in the Malphus Blood Grenade, just let them attack. You'll probably get a kill or just tons of damage in. The thing is, the tricky part for the pub games is that after support Enigmas do that, and they get that level advantage for their ally because they've got so many denies, support Enigmas do a lot more jungling. And in the pub games, that's where you then see some feeding. It's like the same struggle that Batrider has. Like, it's supposed to be a greedy playstyle after a very strong early few levels. It's just so difficult to have that without teammates feeding in your pub games. So that's a little bit of the tough part. But bonus to your pub games, in the late game, Enigma, Black Hole, like fantastic, right? It's always a chance to win the game. So if you feel your games always go late, you could consider Enigma as a support pick. C tier and D tier, I'm not going to talk too much about specifically, but maybe just touch on a couple here that are interesting. Bane, I've been seeing people try a little bit more, but it's not really been working out. But I think the idea is very similar to Shadow Demon and Batrider with the BKB piercing Fiend's Grip, but his is channeled and he can't move at all, whereas Batrider like can do other stuff, right? So his is more limited and can be, like if you get stunned, it stops. Batrider, you lasso, right? Even if you're stunned, that person's still there. Now, there's actually ways to break the lasso, such as Shadow Demon, such as Vengeful Spirit, so there are counters, but these two are much easier to use to screw over one guy. Bane is like next in line in that line of thinking, but not as good. I think that's what people have been trying. It's just not really looking great. I think Shadow Shaman sort of like that as well without the BKB piercing, but for similar reasons with the channeling, not great right now. If you want to try something fun and new, Leshrac support does work. Max Diabolic Edict. You're going to have to get close because your spells are pretty short range, so you're seeing a lot of Arcane Mech Greaves in pubs anyways. At the pro level, in their like official matches, haven't really seen much Leshrac support yet, like a little bit of dabblings, but not a bunch. He's better in the mid lane. But in a lot of pubs, people were trying it out, and it feels pretty good in the pub games. I did it a lot myself as well. So you can give it a go. One downside, though, is that I think the ideal way to play support Leshrac is very tempo-based around Diabolic Edict being such a powerful spell, especially for taking objectives. So that's why the mech works out really well in the Arcane boost, because like you go as a team and you like take a fight with your early power spikes, and then you take the objectives off of it. But this requires the early movements, which are often lacking in pubs. And so in those cases, I think building more mana regen early, a little bit greedier, a little bit more farming works out. But that's kind of like the messy part. Like at that point, you could play a lot of other heroes more effectively than Leshrac. There's many heroes in the C and D tier that have a pretty good pub win rate. And so if you're wondering, I know I said it at the start, but just to reiterate it here at the end, if you're wondering why I have them rated so low, even though a hero like Abaddon has a pretty good pub win rate, so does like Warlock, Witch Doctor if you're like Archon and lower, Venomancer, Treant, Chikiro, right? They are good in pub games, but the professional coordination and the way drafting works at the pro level, these heroes just aren't quite up to par. You will see heroes like the first 3 tiers are the most common to see, and you'll probably see like 2 of them in every single pro match, at least in the bans. C tier, you'll see like a little bit more. There's a little bit more nuance to it. D tier, very unlikely to see in the professional scene outside of like the qualifiers where you have like all sorts of picks going on. But like once you reach like a certain level of like we're in the closed qualifier, group stage, stuff like that, right? You'll see very few of these heroes. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in a guide on some of these heroes, I kind of have them. I will link the ones I have in the description below. If you do want like some build example stuff like that, you can check it out. If not, no worries. I'll see you in a future video. Tier list for position 4s probably soon. See you there. Bye.